Welcome to the next chapter of chemistry, analytical chemistry, chapter number 4. In some books, it is chapter 3b, that is the B part of chapter 3, that is acid, bases, and salts. So, very closely related chapter with acid, bases, and salts. So, this chapter is known as analytical chemistry. So, the word analytical comes from the term analysis. So you need to analyze certain chemical reaction using two very important reagents, ammonium hydroxides, which is a weak base, and sodium hydroxide, which is a strong base or a strong alkali. So using these two reagents, we analyze certain substances. So what exactly analysis means? In this chapter, the determination of chemical components in a given sample is the analysis. What do we do in this chapter? We determine the components, the chemical components in a given unknown sample. So basically, they will give us one unknown sample of a substance, mostly a solution. We will be given with, we will be provided with unknown sample of a solution, okay, in a test tube. So in this unknown sample of a solution, you have to add reagents. Okay, you have to add reagents. Which reagents? Ammonium hydroxide solution, and sodium hydroxide, which are the reagents which will also be provided to you. So in this unknown sample of a solution in a test tube, you will add reagents in different quantities. You can add little by little, that is drop wise, and then see what changes occur, and then you can add in excess, that is in higher or greater quantity, and then you will understand or see what changes occur, right? So you will first take unknown sample of a solution. In that, you will add reagents like ammonium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide, either drop wise and followed by in excess, and you will see what changes occur. So basically, there will be some changes in, like, formation of precipitate, or you can say change in color of solution due to a chemical reaction with the given sample of solution and our reagents. There can be a formation of precipitate, there can be a change in color of solution, and due to these changes, noting these changes, you can find out what uh, what are the constituents of these unknown sample of a solution, right? So you can figure out the constituents of unknown sample of a solution. You can figure out the constituents of unknown sample of a solution using these uh, reagents, that is ammonium hydroxides and sodium hydroxide. So this whole process of finding the constituents of unknown sample of a solution using the reagents is known as analytical chemistry. This is what you do in analytical chemistry. Okay, now it won't be any issue to study this chapter. It's a very small chapter and it has very few things, but yeah, whatever important informations are given to you, you must memorize everything. Okay, so in chemistry we have two types of analysis: qualitative analysis, which involves the identification of unknown substances, and quantitative analysis, which involves determination of composition of a mixture. We are going to understand qualitative analysis in this chapter. So qualitative analysis is identification of an unknown substance, which is done by using chemical test with the help of reagents. A reagent is a substance that reacts with another substance. So which reagents are we using here? Ammonium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide. Alkalis like ammonium hydroxide and sodium hydroxides are important laboratory reagents. When they are added to certain salt solution, characteristic colored precipitates of metallic hydroxides are formed, and thus a metal ion is identified. So our whole idea is to identify the metal ion present in a given unknown sample of a solution by adding reagents to that given unknown sample of a solution. And when we add reagents, some colored precipitates are formed with the color of which we can identify the metallic ion. Okay, so color of the salts and their solution, we should already have this database available with us, which is already given here, and with the help of this data, which shows the name of the metallic ion and their respective color in the solution, we should be able to identify the metallic ion present in an unknown solution using our qualitative analysis of analytical chemistry. So the sorts of representative elements of periodic table, that is elements of group 1, 2, 13 and 17, generally are colorless, while those of transition elements, that is salts of elements of the group 3 to 12, are generally colored. So representative elements salts are colorless, transition elements salts are colored. Different colors of colored salts help in their identification during qualitative analysis. Some examples of colorless and colored ions are given below. So remember that ammonium, sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, lead, zinc, all these ions are colorless. Now, if you have this question in your mind that do we have to memorize this? Absolutely yes, you have to memorize. Colorless ions, the names, you have to memorize all of them. Again, in anions or negative ions or non-metallic ions, chloride, sulfate, carbonate, nitrate, hydrogen carbonate, sulfide, bromide, and acetate. These all ions are colorless. Then if we talk about colored ions, cupric ion Cu2 plus has blue color. Actually, I'm highlighting with green color, but don't focus at this. This is just a highlighter. Okay. Ferrous ion is light green color. Ferric ion is yellowish brown color. Nickel ion is green color. Chromium is also green color. Manganese is pink color. For anions, the colored ions in anions are permanganate ions, MnO4 minus, pink or purple color. Dichromate ion has got orange color and chromate ion has got yellow color. Remember this, okay? So these colors must be remembered by you. This table has to be memorized by you. If you tell me, sir, I don't know chemistry, I'm getting less mark in chemistry, I don't like chemistry, you please help me. Or if any of your parent comes to me with this problem that why the marks in chemistry are so less, and if I find out that the reason is because you don't want to memorize, then I will straight away simply right now tell you, don't come to me with this stupid requests that I cannot score marks in chemistry, what will happen in boards and this and that. Until you are able to memorize the facts which I'm telling you to, you cannot score marks in chemistry. Chemistry is 80 to 90% memorization. The remaining 10-20% can be little bit of logic. But 80 to 90% of your chemistry is memorization. If you are not good with that, you will never be able to score marks in chemistry. And you cannot give this excuse to me that no, I cannot memorize. If you cannot memorize, be ready to score less marks. Do you remember that? Do you understand that? Now remember it. Okay. Coming back to our topic. What is the action of alkali on metal cations that we have to study. The action of alkali on metal cations results in the formation of hydroxides, which often appear as precipitates. So this is a very important statement for all of you. Action of alkali. Alkali means a reagent. Which reagent? Sodium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide. So action of these alkalis on metal cations. Metal cations means any salt solution of metal. It results in the formation of their hydroxides, which are generally in the form of precipitates, because metal hydroxides are generally not soluble in water. Okay, so they appear as precipitates. You know what is precipitation already. Precipitation is the process of formation of an insoluble solid when solutions are mixed. So when a solution of your uh, alkali, that is your reagent, that is ammonium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide, is mixed with the given sample of unknown solution which contains an unknown metallic ion, a precipitate will form. And we will analyze, we will notice, we will understand its color on observation. The solid thus formed is called precipitate. Only those compounds form precipitate which are insoluble in water. So let's first check out the action of sodium hydroxide, our first reagent, on certain metallic salt solution. When sodium hydroxide or caustic soda solution is added drop by drop to the solution of metallic salts, unknown metallic salts, the metal hydroxide formed gets precipitated. The color of the precipitate identifies the metal ion. As we have the table in this table, all the different metallic ions which give different colors in the precipitate form, we can easily identify the metallic ions. So only a given, let's say only a selected metallic ion reactions are given over here. Only six different equations. Okay, out of all these different metallic ions, only 6 metallic ions has to be studied. So don't worry about that. You must remember the color of each and every one of them, but out of these only 6 are discussed in detail. Let me make myself clear. Color of the precipitate identifies the metal ion. Color of the precipitate identifies the metal ion. Some precipitated metallic hydroxide dissolves in excess of sodium hydroxide solution to give a soluble complexes. Soluble complexes means soluble complex salts. Okay, so let's understand one by one what happens in adding alkali, that is our reagent, to a given unknown salt solution, first dropwise and then in excess. What is the color of precipitate, whether the precipitate is formed or not, what is its solubility in excess of alkali. Let's understand. So first is calcium salt. Whenever you have a solution of calcium salt, you don't know whether it's calcium salt or not. What will happen? In any calcium salt, which is colorless originally, see, we have known that calcium ion is colorless ion. So its calcium salt will be colorless. Okay. If you add your caustic soda, which is your reagent, which is also colorless, it will form a white precipitate. It will form a white precipitate of calcium hydroxide. And sodium nitrate solution, which is colorless, will be formed. So you will be able to see white precipitate at the bottom of the test tube when these two are mixed. Now, the color of the precipitate will be white and its solubility in excess of alkali. That means if you add this alkali in excess, if you add more alkali, first you add dropwise. When you add dropwise, when you add sodium hydroxide dropwise, white precipitate is formed. But when you add sodium hydroxide in excess, the white precipitate is sparingly soluble. Sparingly means hardly soluble. It's not that much soluble. That this whole observation has to be remembered with the balanced chemical equation, and this observation tells us that the given sample has got calcium salt, calcium ion, Ca2 plus ion. How we can say that? Because initially the given sample was colorless, then it formed white precipitate on adding our alkali dropwise, and then on adding our alkali in excess, the white precipitate was sparingly soluble. That means the unknown ion in our given solution is of calcium ion. What about ferrous ion, Fe2 plus ion? So any ferrous salt solution will be in pale green color. When you add your sodium hydroxide to this pale green color unknown sample of a solution, which now we know that it is a ferrous solution, a dirty green gelatinous PPT will be formed of ferrous hydroxide. So whenever you see dirty green gelatinous PPT, that means the given sample has got ferrous ions plus sodium sulfate solution, which is colorless. So generally that test tube will look like colorless sodium sulfate solution, and the bottom of that solution will get dirty green gelatinous PPT. Now if you add sodium hydroxide in excess, what will happen? This dirty green PPT will remain insoluble. There is no effect on excess of sodium hydroxide on this ferrous salt solution. Suppose you have ferric salt solution, and which is originally yellow in color, ferric chloride, and you add your sodium hydroxide solution in it, which is colorless. A PPT will be formed, precipitate will be formed, which will be reddish brown in color, which is ferric hydroxide, and sodium chloride solution, which will be colorless. So you will have a colorless solution on the top, and at the bottom you have reddish brown PPT. This reddish brown PPT will be insoluble in excess of sodium hydroxide. So even if you add excess of sodium hydroxide in the solution, the precipitate, reddish brown precipitate of ferric hydroxide will remain insoluble. So these facts you must memorize. I'm again and again telling you must memorize. Please don't make excuse that I don't understand what is happening. I have explained very nicely that what we are trying to achieve in this chapter. Now, what is being done, that is also being explained to you. You have a salt solution, you add reagent or an alkali into it, first dropwise and then in excess, and you observe the changes. So there will be definitely a formation of precipitate. You have to observe the color of the precipitate. Color of the precipitate will tell you the color of the will tell you the nature of the metallic ion present in the original salt solution, which we are examining, analyzing, or qualitatively analyzing. And then we add the reagent, that is your alkali, in excess, and then we observe the change, whether the given precipitate is soluble in excess of alkali or not, right? And already they have given you all the details, so you have to memorize these details and answer the question based on these details in the exercise and in the exam. Now you understand the whole motive of the chapter. Now let's go fast. So for copper salt, any copper salt solution is blue in color. When you add alkali into it, pale brown PPT will be formed, right? This pale brown PPT will be insoluble in excess of alkali. Remember this. When you take a solution with zinc salt, which is originally colorless, when you add alkali into it, you will get white gelatinous PPT. See, you got white PPT for calcium salt, but here you are getting white gelatinous PPT. Gelatinous is little shiny. Okay, so this gelatinous white PPT will be soluble in excess of alkali. With excess of alkali, what will happen is the reaction which is given beneath the original reaction. With excess of alkali, you have sodium hydroxide, white gelatinous PPT. When it reacts with your excess of alkali, zinc hydroxide is white gelatinous PPT. When it reacts with sodium hydroxide, excess, it forms sodium zincate, which is soluble in the solution, that is colorless, and water. Okay, so zinc salts generally form gelatinous white PPT, and with excess of alkali they are soluble. Then if you have lead salts, which are originally colorless, lead salt solution are originally colorless. When you add sodium hydroxide or alkali in it, it forms white PPT. These are actually chalky white, okay, not gelatinous white, chalky white, okay. And in excess of sodium hydroxide, the PPT dissolves. It forms sodium plumbite. Just like here sodium zincate is formed, we get a mixed or a complex salt of sodium plumbite. Okay, white precipitate of lead hydroxide is readily soluble in acetic acid. So if you're getting the white precipitate, and if you're confused whether this white precipitate is of zinc or of lead or of calcium, then you can add this white precipitate in acetic acid, and if the white precipitate is of lead hydroxide, then it will be readily soluble in acetic acid, otherwise it will not be. Zinc hydroxides and calcium hydroxides white PPT are not soluble in acetic acid. Only lead hydroxides white PPT are soluble in acetic acid. So that's one more test for you, one more option. Okay, ammonium salt. Okay, so suppose you have ammonium chloride, and you want to check the amount, the kind of positive ions present in that salt. What you do is you add your alkali in it, and ammonia gas is evolved. You will see evolution of a gas, you will observe evolution of gas. And if this gas is tested, okay, if that this gas is tested somehow, we will study how, what are the tests of ammonia. It has a pungent smell, so that's one of its physical characteristic. So if the gas is evolved, then you can say that the given salt in which we have added our reagent sodium hydroxide is an ammonium salt, remember that. In this there is no PPT, there is no color, there is no PPT, only evolution of gas. So the sixth one is little weird one. Okay, so these are your actions of sodium hydroxide solution on certain metallic salt solution. Now we'll study the action of ammonium hydroxide on certain salt solution. Let's start with calcium salt. When you add ammonium hydroxide to calcium salt, no precipitation occurs, even with addition of excess of ammonium hydroxide, because the concentration of hydroxyl ion from the ionization of ammonium hydroxide is so low that it cannot precipitate the hydroxide of calcium, because ammonium hydroxide is a weak base, right? So it cannot make precipitate with calcium salt, right? So that's the one thing you must remember. When you use the reagent ammonium hydroxide, it will not show any precipitation with calcium salt. What about iron salt? With iron salt, which are green in color, iron salt solutions are green in color. When you add ammonium hydroxide, which is now your new reagent, first reagent was sodium hydroxide, the new reagent which you are using is ammonium hydroxide, you get a dirty green PPT, right, which is insoluble in excess of ammonium hydroxide. Suppose you have ferric salt, iron 3 salts, like yellow colored ferric chloride solution, and you add your reagent into it, you will get a reddish brown PPT just like before, and this is also insoluble in excess of ammonium hydroxide. If you have ferric sulfate solution, yellow colored again, and you add ammonium hydroxide in it, again you get reddish brown PPT, which will be insoluble in excess of alkali. Suppose you've got copper salts. Suppose you've got copper salt and you add ammonium hydroxide in it. Copper salts are generally blue in color. When added with alkali, when alkali is added to it in drop wise, pale blue PPT of copper hydroxide is formed. Okay, this pale blue PPT is soluble in excess of ammonium hydroxide and forms a deep blue solution of tetraamine copper sulfate. Tetraamine copper sulfate. Okay, so if more ammonium hydroxide is added, the pale blue PPT gets dissolved in ammonium hydroxide solution and forms a soluble solution of tetraamine copper 2 sulfate, which is deep blue in color. Okay, this reaction is a characteristic property of copper ions and it is used for its detection in qualitative analysis. So if you have sodium hydroxide solution, and if you use sodium hydroxide solution to identify let's say copper ions, you will get pale blue PPT. That's it, nothing will happen. It will be insoluble in excess of sodium hydroxide. But if you take ammonium hydroxide solution, you will get an exact sure shot qualitative analysis of the presence of copper ions, which is, first it will form pale blue precipitate on dropwise addition of ammonium hydroxide. But when ammonium hydroxide is added in excess, it will form a deep blue solution of tetraamine copper sulfate, CuNH3,4SO4, which is a characteristic property of copper ions, and this property is used for the copper ion detection in qualitative analysis using ammonium hydroxide reagent. Then zinc salt, they also have this characteristic reaction with ammonium hydroxide. So when zinc sulfate, any zinc salt solution is treated with ammonium hydroxide, it forms gelatinous white PPT. This gelatinous white PPT is soluble in excess of ammonium hydroxide, right? And it forms a colorless solution of tetramine zinc sulfate, ZnNH3,4SO4. Okay, so remember both these equations that what happens with zinc sulfate solution when excess of alkali, that is your ammonium hydroxide, is added to it. Lead salts, what happens with lead salts? Lead salts generally are colorless, and when ammonium hydroxide is added to lead salts, you get a white PPT, which is chalky white. So lead salts form chalky white precipitate which are insoluble in excess of ammonium hydroxide. So these are the characteristics of different salt solution containing different metallic ions with the reagent with our alkali ammonium hydroxides, out of which copper salts and zinc salts which have characteristic observations. Okay, so remember all these details. I can just tell you that there is no shortcut. If you ask me what is the trick, how do we remember, there is no trick. This is simple plain information which has to be remembered if you want to score in chemistry. Let's go ahead. We have finished the first part, the next part, and we are done with the chapter very soon. Okay, now we will study the action of alkalis on certain metals. Now these alkalis which we were discussing previously, which were our reagents, ammonium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide. Now we are going to talk about ammonium hydroxide and potassium hydroxides, which are two strong alkalis. They have some characteristic reactions or actions on certain metals. For example, generally, when these alkalis react with zinc, aluminum, and lead, they form complex salts, double salts, you can say, like sodium zincate, potassium zincate, that is Na2ZnO2, K2ZnO2, sodium aluminate, potassium aluminate, sodium plumbite, potassium plumbite, okay, with their characteristic colorless appearance, and hydrogen gas is evolved. So strong alkalis like potassium and sodium hydroxides, they are able to react with metals like zinc, aluminum, and lead. And zinc, aluminum, and lead are able to release hydrogen gas when they react with these strong alkalis and form double salts of uh, two metals which are involved in. Okay, so this information you must remember. The next information which you must remember is action of alkalis on metallic oxides. So oxides of metals are basic in nature. We have studied that in previous classes. Even in this 10th class, we have studied it in the previous chapter, that is your acid, bases and salts. And we know that metallic oxides are basic in nature. They dissolve in water, forming hydroxides or alkalis. Some alkalis which are water soluble are of you can say potassium hydroxides and sodium hydroxides. These are water soluble alkalis, water soluble hydroxides or alkalis. Okay, these metal oxides and hydroxides neutralize acids but do not react with bases, right? So metal oxides, they have general characteristic of metal oxides have general characteristic of dissolving in water and forming hydroxides, metallic hydroxides, which both of them, metallic oxides and hydroxide, both of them can react with acids and neutralize them. But few metallic oxides and hydroxide exhibit a dual character. So I'm again talking about this dual character. I remember that I had talked about this dual character in the first chapter, that is periodic table, and also in the in acid, bases and salts, I think in a very, very small topic, but here I'm going to emphasize it. The dual character of few metallic oxides and hydroxides is the amphoteric nature. That is, they show acidic as well as basic character. That means these few metallic oxides and hydroxides, they can react with acids as well as bases to form salt and water. When these metallic oxides and hydroxides react with acids, they behave like bases and they neutralize acids. When these metallic oxides and hydroxides react with bases, they behave like acids, and again they neutralize to form salt and water. And the major examples are of zinc oxide and zinc hydroxides. When zinc oxide and hydroxide react with acids like hydrochloric acid, they form salt and water only, neutralization reaction. But when zinc oxide and hydroxide react with sodium hydroxide, which is an alkali, they form sodium zincate, which is a salt, and water, again neutralization. So amphoteric oxides and hydroxides are those compounds which react with both acids and alkalis to form salt and water. Here are some reactions of amphoteric oxides and hydroxides with alkalis to form salt and water. Only alkalis, not with acids. Okay, so you have to remember these reactions and the balance reactions, of course, of these metallic oxides and hydroxides with alkalis, different alkalis, and the respective salts and water which are formed. These are the examples of neutralization reaction. Yeah, so that is your basically your chapter number 4. It is over, analytical chemistry. I hope you understood this chapter and also enjoyed it. Okay, so I'm going to give the exercise of this chapter soon after your current exam finishes. Okay, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.